Hi,
Hey, hi, Effie. How are you?
I'm good.
Okay. I see hi, Amparo. Hi, Robert. Um, I'm not sure if everybody has the right link though, because I know the one that on the calendar for the board's website was wrong.
Oh,
Yeah, I think. Okay. All right.
I
So
got
we're
this
just
one emailed to me.
me, right? The email has it right. Yeah. Okay.
I went
Excuse
on the
me one
website.
second.
And you got a January link or something? What did you get? You got on the website, it was right, or was I
And it
looking at the
was
wrong
here.
thing?
It came here.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'm behind. Okay. Could be. I could
And
be
and
just
that's
confused.
that's Boo Boo.
Hi, Boo Boo.
Boo Boo
Hi, Boo Boo.
Boo Boo looks really comfortable.
Boo Boo just came from our office in Queens.
Okay.
She's very annoyed with me that, you know, she can't run free in the subway and say hello to everyone.
Oh, okay.
She's
Okay.
very
Now,
cute.
is
And
mhm.
and she has her own line of hoodies. See, my Boo Boo's hoodies.
Oh, okay.
We make
Cool.
dog hoodies that say social justice warrior.
Oh my goodness.
Is this
Oh, that
not,
is
excuse me, isn't this the cutest fucking thing?
Adorable. Adorable.
I love my little hoodies.
okay.
Rainbow and everything. I love it.
We also have it in navy, but the Pride hoodie is our fun piece.
Okay. Okay. You're loving it,
I love
Amparo.
that.
Okay.
I could do that. How do
That's in reactions? What is that in?
Yeah, it's in reactions.
you
Okay.
hit reactions and then what?
Yeah, and then they have send with effect. So those are the ones that move. Okay.
Okay,
I
so
like that.
Yeah,
oh, I
Boo,
So
get
there
Boo
it.
you
Boo
Thank
needed
go.
that.
you. I'm 73, so I learn, takes me a while to learn these things.
That took you like 20 seconds to learn that thing.
Okay,
Give yourself
all
some
right.
credit, please.
Oh gosh.
Okay, you're just giving a little time for people to come. Give it like two
Oh
more
no,
minutes.
no
Yeah.
problem. I hope it's okay. I'm giving some background about my experience before I say what we. Okay.
Yeah. Perfect.
Oh,
Perfect. And I'm glad you could make it. I'm glad you said yes, Abby. So,
oh, my pleasure. We may be joining with New York State Assemblywoman Alicia Heinman at her Juneteenth event. I'm bringing 40 tables of formerly incarcerated vendors.
oh, okay. Okay.
I,
Okay.
we're very hooked into, very connected, or rather we connect people to each other.
Okay. No, that'd be good. You can tell us more about that event
Oh
too,
yeah.
because maybe that's something else that we can promote. And we have a newsletter, so we can promote, at least let the community know about it too.
And anybody who comes will get a kiss from Boo Boo.
Oh, Boo Boo's coming. Okay.
Oh,
Has
gosh,
to, right?
has to. Even if I have to find one of those baby things to
Like a
put her,
carrier.
a carrier. I need to find a
Oh,
carrier.
Okay.
She's 13 pounds. It's not so easy.
Okay. How old is she?
2.5,
Okay.
going on 1.
Okay.
Hold on one sec. Come in.
Come on, Tuffy, you can come up.
Hi,
Look.
Lauren, I just made you co-host, so I'll be dropping off. Is there anyone that needs privileges? Anyone
Yeah,
needs to share?
Effie, yeah, but you're not going to be using the PowerPoint. You're just going to be talking though, right? Or do you, okay. Yeah, so we're good. We're
All
good.
right, so when I hop off, I will give you host.
Okay. Sounds good, Debbie, and hi.
Hi.
Now she's trying to wipe off my lipstick. Okay.
Okay.
and there goes Tuppy. Hi, Tuppy.
Oh, top, okay.
Oh, another baby. Hi.
Yeah.
Very cute.
Oh,
Oh, look at them.
I'm crazy for dogs.
Huh?
I'm crazy for dogs.
Yeah, me too.
Aw.
Especially my dog. Your dog's lovely. Look at her.
She's a baby. So
Huh?
there was a puppy program when I was incarcerated, and you're not supposed, there are puppies that are being trained
Yeah.
as service dogs primarily for seeing, for seeing eye dogs, although that's not what I'm supposed to say now. I forget. Anyway, visually challenged, I'm not sure. Anyhow, we weren't allowed, but I would sneak around and look at them, and the people at the puppy program would sneak me in to kiss one or two because they knew how much I love dogs.
Okay, good. Good. So let's get started, okay, because it's 6:04. I want to also be mindful of people's time. Okay, so welcome to the February 2025 meeting of the Community Board's Health and Human Services and Education and House and Shelter Committee. And tonight we're fortunate to have Evie Litwack, who is the founder and executive director of Witness to Mass Incarceration. So take it away, Evie.
Okay, so thank you, Lauren, for inviting me to speak. I'm going to start today by giving you some background on me and what led me to form Witness. So I am a 73-year-old, formerly incarcerated Jewish lesbian and the child of 2 survivors of the Holocaust. And those intersections impacted me when I was incarcerated at 2 different federal women's facilities. And I spent time in solitary confinement. I was released 11 years ago. In 2009 and 10, that's prior to my first incarceration, I was living with my mother, who had great difficulty hearing or seeing or walking without support. And the night before I left for prison, she came into my room and very seriously, she said, "I want to talk to you." And she motioned for me to get closer and said, "It will be harder for you to be in prison than it was for me to be in concentration camp." And I looked at her, I said, "Mom, are you crazy? You were in Auschwitz. How can you compare the two?" She said, "I was 12 years old. You were 60. And it would be years later when I was in solitary that I would remember her words, which was, "I was young. I was a child. I didn't know what was going on. You're an old woman." I wasn't crazy about her saying that, but you're an old woman and you will remember everything about your past. And she was right. And that was a kind of torturous thing to have those kind of memories. So the moment that I entered prison, I knew I had left the free world. I was taken immediately into a cold and dingy room where I had to be strip searched in front of an officer. To this day, I can tell you, I remember every second of that strip search. I was ordered to pee in front of her. I had to lift my breast so she could check for, anything that I might have brought in, any contraband, and I had to bend over. She had to touch. She made me cough, and she looked at my personal spaces, touched them, and again was checking. And in that moment, it was the most humiliated I think that I've ever been. I don't even think there was a level of humiliation that I could think of that was like that. And I knew I had to find a set of coping skills that didn't exist in my current life. And I did. Now, the first place they put you into is an orientation and admissions unit. And people who are veterans walk over to you and say, if you need to do easy time when you're in prison and you need to stay under the radar, no officer should know your name. And no, certainly the warden shouldn't know your name. And unfortunately, I'm 73, so I was a baby of the women's gay rights, as it was called back then, and civil rights movement. And I was an old experienced activist. So as soon as I walked into prison, I couldn't check what I had already done most of my life at the door. And it took less than an hour for me to have been on everybody's radar. People walk over to you and they want to know, they ask you questions as a newbie. So first woman walked over to me, "Are you married? Do you have children?" "No, I'm not married. I don't have children." Second person, "Are you married? Do you have children?" "No, I'm not married. I don't have children." After about the fourth person, I thought to myself, I came out 40 years ago. I'm not going back in the closet. Of course, that was probably one of the dumber thoughts and one of the biggest mistakes I made. But I remembered in my head thinking, I came out to my mother, 40 years ago, and what she said to me is, "If Hitler didn't kill me, you will," which I still to this day laugh about. and thought this is this is going to be the title of a book that I have been writing. So when the next woman approached me, I said, and asked me the same question. I said, no, I'm not married. I don't have kids. I'm a lesbian. And she said, can I see your pictures? Because we were allowed to bring in 25 pictures. Well, I had 25 pictures of my dog. So she screamed out, this old lesbian brought in 25 pictures of her dog. I was finished for the rest of my time in prison because as soon coming out in prison is a no-no. And I was punished both in where they put me, where they let me sleep, and I was punished with where they let me work. And that lasted and I was told that. I said, because you came out, you are blackballed from having a job, a normal job. So, and within an hour of that scream, the entire compound, I was on everybody's radar because it's like inmate.com. It works very fast, and 1,300 women and all the officers knew, and that became very problematic for me. So I was kicked out of the first unit I was in because that was a privileged unit, and put in another unit and placed in what they call the bus stop. So if you can imagine 120 to 150 women sleeping in the normal sleeping units behind me, and there's a separation, and then there's 10 bunk beds practically on top of each other where we were. So at 11 o'clock when the lights go off, it's pitch black dark from right behind us. But the fluorescent lights and it's not one or two fluorescent lights in every building, dining room, recreational room, sleeping rooms. The fluorescent lights are throughout the top, and they're intentional, and they cause a lot of women to have seizures who've never had them before, and they cause a lot of problems. So we were in an area where the lights were on all night. So you couldn't sleep. Then right in front of us was an ice maker, which every 20 minutes crashed down. And on either side of where we were sleeping were the showers and toilets where 150 women were going to the bathroom. So the bus stop was designed as punishment. And I don't think I slept for close to an entire year. And I was very sick after I left prison as a result. Um, and all women, you're forced to work in prison. I mean, technically, you're supposed to lose your freedom and not supposed to have all these things imposed on you, but you're forced to work. And for women over 60, and I entered prison at age 60, you're supposed to be given soft work, mop a floor and then read a book. Because I came out, they put me in landscaping. And they gave me landscaping I was in West Virginia, it was like 90 degrees because we were high in the mountains. And they gave me a broom and they told me to sweep rocks off the street. You can't sweep a rock with a broom. Doesn't work, straw broom. So, and they knew that on both sides of my family, I had heart disease. So this was very intentional on their part to cause me to be sick. But I went out there to sweep the streets, and I had a memory immediately of a story my mother had told me. And my mother was born in Lodz, Poland in September 1939 when the Germans came in, the Nazis came in. They ordered all the men to go on trucks, and they took them for 3 weeks while they left the women and children behind. And the last time my mother saw her father, my grandfather, who I never met, he had jet black hair, jet black beard, stood tall. After 3 weeks, they brought these men home. And when she looked at her father, she got frightened because he was completely gray in 3 weeks. And he had been beaten so badly that he had a hunchback. And to further humiliate them as they took him off the trucks, they asked the women and children to come downstairs and watch them. And they made them sweep the streets. And as I'm starting to sweep the streets in prison, I can feel my grandfather, who I never met, sweeping beside me. And I felt that every day. Now, in prison, I was in 2 prisons. There's essentially no medical care. So whether you have a serious condition, you're not ever sent out of prison for a scan or for any kind of treatment unless you're dying. Period. You're not sent out unless they figure it's the end. So if you got cancer in prison and it wasn't already, even if it was caught or not caught, you're not going to get treatment. There was one physician's assistant who saw all 1,300 women, and no matter whether you came in with a cyst, a broken foot, a headache, you got the same speech. You're fat, walk on the track and drink water. So when a woman named Miriam Hernandez walked in, and she was clearly like dying, you could see that she wasn't well. She got the fat speech. He said, go back to work. 2 weeks later, she died on the compound because her gallbladder burst. And I, having had a gallbladder and having been operated on, I went nuts that somebody, all they had to do was take a blood test and they would have recognized her white blood count was too high, and she would have been here. There's no reason for anybody to die except for neglect, which happens like too many times. So I wrote an article about the state of health, of what happened, of the women who died, the women who became blind or deaf, just in a few months. And an hour after it got posted, I was arrested and shackled and taken to solitary, and I was told they're going to keep me there for as long as they feel like it, which they could do. And I didn't care that I wrote this piece, but I did not understand the consequences of solitary. So solitary is a prison within a prison run by 4 or 5 people. They do whatever they want to do. And the primary reason for solitary in women's prisons is not because we're having fist fights or we are a jeopardy to national security or we have a cell phone or a gun. It's primarily used as a retaliatory measure by officers or guards, particularly around sexual violence. And what I mean by that is I was literally standing near an officer. Let me backtrack. 70% of women in prison are younger women who are mothers. So I was among the oldest in prison, and everybody else was either the age of could be the age of a child or a grandchild. So you have a lot of women who have young children who visit them every weekend. So an officer would walk over, and you would hear this. This was not closed. It was right out in the open, and would say, do you want to see your kids this weekend? And this young woman would say, yes, of course. And the officer would say, excuse me for saying this, but I want you to know how it is. Then I want a blowjob. And if this woman didn't do it, she was headed towards solitary, where she would lose visitation. And if the officer was very, very threatened, he would try to arrange to have her transferred. And if she was transferred, then she would not be likely to see her family on a weekly basis like she did, because she would be transferred to another state. So the solitary confinement, or SHU, was filled with 60 women at all times, most of whom were in there because officers were afraid that they would talk, and this was a way to keep them silent. And it's a terrible state of affairs. Now, I was kept in solitary for 7 weeks, and I can tell you just from those 7 weeks, I am physically, mentally, and emotionally not the same person. And even though I'm out of prison 11 years, I still have triggers and traumas. I cannot go into an elevator easily. I cannot go to any small places easily. I never know when I'm going to have a panic attack and pass out. And my doctor was so concerned about me passing out in elevators and on the subway that she said, look, you've got heart disease on both sides of your family. Panic attack will lead to a stroke. Is there any way you can, know it's going to happen? And I said, no. She said, well, we have to. So she said, I want you to take your dog with you and see if that helps. And it did, because my dogs are very sensitive to my nervousness or my tearing up, and they start to kiss me, and that distracted me from being in a small space. So she basically wrote a letter saying, my patient, this dog is serving as a service animal for PTSD, and you have to let her on any planes or trains that she wants to go. If you don't let the dog on, then you risk her dying. And she wrote this very intense letter, and it really did save me. Now, to completely understand solitary, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard about solitary, but I want you to just envision this with me for a minute. I want you to imagine just being locked in your personal bathrooms in your apartments. I want you have a toilet where your tub is a metal bed. The window is blocked. There's no medicine cabinet, of course, and a tiny sink. So you can sit on the toilet, you can lie on the metal bed, which will cripple you, or you can stand up and stretch in this very small place. But you do not have a phone, you do not have a computer, you do not have Sudoku or a crossword puzzle, you do not have your knitting. So the question is, and I'm asking this sincerely, how many of you on this call could stay in your own bathrooms for 24 hours? Nobody can. And yet they take children 16 and under and put them in solitary for 2 years. You might as well just destroy the life, you know? And I will tell you that even 1 day in solitary is too long. It's an abomination that we use this, and it should never be permitted because it's damaging for life. Now, just as an example, in the first day that I was in solitary, I got vertigo. Never had vertigo in my life. I started to get migraine headaches within 24 hours. And I could feel my blood pressure going up. And I was begging them to please check my blood pressure. Just check my blood pressure. Not asking you to take me to a hospital. I'm just asking you to check because I don't feel good. No, took them 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, I was 200 over 100. And I looked at them and I said, I've got heart disease on both sides of my family. Do you think it's time to take me for an EKG? Not complicated. I wasn't asking for the moon. Nope, we're not taking you out. We get $75,000 and if you die. Whether that's true or not, that's the mentality that you're dealing with. I was given one roll of toilet paper, and again, you're locked in 24 hours a day. So when I asked for a second roll, the guard looked at me with a straight face and said, "Wipe yourself." And I'll tell you, what you learn in prison is you say to yourself, I'll be damned if I move a muscle in my face for this MF guard. I'm not. You learn to hold those feelings in and not give guards the satisfaction of being upset. Because if you did cry, then instead of taking 2 days to give you the second roll of toilet paper, he would walk around solitary and say, oh, mama cried, so I'm going to wait 4 days to give her. Because it's a sick, you cannot change the culture of prison. You cannot. It's not possible. You can spend $100 million on training people in New York alone, and it won't have an impact because you'd need to hire younger people who are not molded by older ones that are there into that same, deprivation mentality. So 2 things that also came out of solitary, and I think it's very important for people to understand how much trauma and how much damage was done that we walk around with post-prison for the rest of our lives. So there were 60 women in solitary, most of whom, as I said, were in there because they didn't want to have sex, or they did have sex and didn't want to do it again. And excuse my language again, but they were screaming, not all together, 24 hours a day, they were screaming, get me the fuck out of here. To this day, 11 years later, I hear that scream. And to this day, I cannot walk necessarily into a gala or any gathering of a lot of people where there's a lot of noise. So a lot of formerly incarcerated people need quiet. They need quiet because of the noise that we had during the course of our incarceration. Everything in prison is loud. You live in dormitory type situation, it's loud. And you never escape that loudness. There's still a buzzing in your head. Many of the women tried to commit suicide. Now you're in very close quarters, and some did, and you could hear it. And you'd scream for officers, and they'd walk over. I will tell you, I am a person of faith. I am not someone who thinks about suicide ever, but I did look up to God and think, I've had a great life, and it would be really okay if I didn't wake up tomorrow. That was me saying, I've had enough of this. I can't bear it anymore. And I'm as strong as they get. I'm as forward and positive and optimistic. And I know that if I felt that way, I can't even imagine what a younger person felt who's stuck in solitary, or someone who's a queer person who's allegedly put in solitary for their protection, but it's not any protection. So it is, it was, and I was released a week after being in solitary confinement. So everything was very difficult because you come out of this horrible space and all of a sudden they give you $30 and a Greyhound ticket and they send you on your way to New York. So I'm one of 700,000 people that get released every year. And my story can be repeated 700,000 times across the country, and more likely 20,000 times in New York alone. So I arrived at Port Authority, a place I knew well, and I found myself sobbing and ran to a wall because I didn't want anybody to see me, because no one was there to meet me. My mother was elderly and had the beginning of dementia, and my brother and I had no relationship. So I knew instantly that coming home alone was one of the worst things that happened to me. Then I got to the transitional housing that I had to report to, and I had nothing. I had no clothes. I had nothing. I had no phone. I had no way of communicating with people. I managed to find a friend's phone number. I mean, remember a friend's address, and he brought me some clothes, but you're not provided with anything in transitional housing. So whatever you leave prison with is what you have. So I went to prison at age 60. I worked for 30 years before I went to prison. I worked 12 years on Wall Street managing money, 10 years running nonprofits. I had a great resume. And when I figured it would be a no-brainer to get a job, I sent out 200 applications, heard from nobody. And I couldn't even get a filing job. I could only get a job at the Gap, where if you sat down for a minute to tie your shoelace, you were fired. You had to stand up folding shirts all day. So the wage earning jobs that are available are very low paying and provide no trajectory. And I do not focus on trying to find wage earning jobs for people, because it is too easy to fire us. There are too many we are going to be the first ones fired if we're hired, and we're not going to be getting pensions or get on a track to have an improved life. As a result, I was penniless and homeless for 16 months. I could not get a job. And I also understood that if I had a resume that was as long as mine, then the women I was incarcerated with would never get a job because they had no experience whatsoever. So I was very in Building Witness, which I'll tell you in a minute, I was very informed, or rather our programs are based on my personal experience. I also understood poverty for the first time because I only had Medicare. I had Social Security, which I couldn't get when I walked out. It took couple of months to get it. When I did get it, I could afford to either have um, uh, a quarter, it was a quarter 11 years ago, believe it or not, for a bagel, or $1 for a pizza. And that was my meal. And that's all I could afford. And I did not want to eat that way. But I did know, walking into prison and after my first strip search, that I would dedicate the rest of my life to this issue. Because even though I was a lifelong activist, I had no idea of how bad things were for other people. I knew the work I did, but it didn't touch the surface. It didn't touch the surface. So I formed Witness immediately. To be honest, I had an old friend who I ran into, and I hadn't seen her in 20 years. And she said to me, "Where have you been?" And I said, "In prison." She said, "Where are you living?" I said, "Wherever I can. Shelter, a bed, someone's bed, a couch." And she said, "There is no way I'm going to let you do that." And she said, "The first thing we have to do to stabilize you is get you an apartment." And I said, "Irv, I can't afford an apartment. I have only $1,300 or $1,400 at the time from Social Security. If I use that, it pays for, it was the building I happen to live in now was senior low income housing, and it was a studio apartment. And it would have taken all of my Social Security. I said, "I can't do it." And she said, "Don't worry, I'll get you a little job, so you can pay your bills." I said, "Irv, you're not going to be able to get me a job. I'm not only a convicted felon, I'm 65 years old." I said, and she came back about a week later and said, "You're right. I can't get you any job." And it shocked her that with her Rolodex, we did use Rolodexes back in the day, that she couldn't help me. So she said, "Look, I know it's a matter of pride, but I'm going to give you $1,000 a month for a year. That should just pay enough of your bills and have a little food after rent. And I want you to start Witness." And that $1,000 a month that she gave me for a year, which is $12,000 in the scheme of things. Remember, always, it's $567,000 a year to hold someone at Rikers. And here, for $12,000, she saved my life. And she dragged me to Washington, and I started doing the things I wanted to do. But the first project that we did, or we created, was the Suitcase Project. It was based on my experience of coming home alone. I knew I never wanted someone to come home alone. I wanted them to be greeted by some people, even if they were not family. 2, I wanted to provide them with their first meal, for it to be a good meal. 3, I wanted to provide them with a suitcase, and a computer, a phone, and a little money for clothes, food, toiletries. And that would get someone started. But more than anything, it would give them 5 or 6 people that they could call for help. And I thought this was an important program that we started. And we've done it, but our focus has been more on the second project that we developed, which is called the MAP Project. Largely because of my inability to get a job, despite my credentials. One of the things I became aware of, or one of the things I understood from having been in finance, is that you can't build generational wealth unless you can put some money away, and you can't put money away from a wage-earning job. And I read a study done in 2017 by the Kellogg Foundation on Black-owned businesses versus Black wage earning. And they studied a tremendous number of people and found that Black entrepreneurs earned 11 times what Black wage earning jobs. And I said, well, it follows what I believe, which is that formerly incarcerated people face so many barriers coming out of prison to any kind of jobs, that the best thing I could do is to support formerly incarcerated, owned or led services and businesses like mine. So I went to look for them. And what I discovered is there's no listing anywhere, locally, state, or on a federal level, of formerly incarcerated led services or businesses. Now, again, this was 2016. And I decided, so the SBA works with women-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses, Caribbean-owned businesses. They even have shopping. They do promote shopping through these businesses. We are not listed. They don't want to list us to this day. And furthermore, if you're not listed, there's no financial allocation allowed to be gotten. So we can't get resources. If you need $10,000 or $5,000 to just buy supplies for your business, there's no access. So in 2016, I decided to build an online directory. We actually got the funding for it in 2019, and we currently have 2,000 listings of formerly incarcerated entrepreneurs. And that's across the United States, with about 110 in New York City. And we work very hard to keep this. And by the way, Yelp has no listing of these businesses either. So the MAP project was designed to support current and future businesses. So we built the online directory, and I didn't get a lot of funding, especially post-COVID. So I developed an internship program within Witness. We have 90 interns a year, 45 in the summer, and roughly 20 for each semester. And they work in teams, and they're from 31 universities, and they work in teams. So once we built the online directory, I then decided to interview as many of the entrepreneurs as they can about life before, during, and after prison. And it's our interns who write articles about each of these businesses for us to post. It's our intern social media group that promotes other people's businesses. So if you go to the archives on my Instagram account, you will see hundreds of businesses that we promote, particularly in the New York area. So while we started with an online directory, the interviews, we have a digital library of more than 200 hours of interviews. And we have journalist article on at least 160 people. And then my next decision was to create events for formerly incarcerated people to sell their goods and services. So with the help of then City Council member Adrienne Adams, who was one of the first people I met and told my story to, she supported us in doing an outdoor event at Baisley Pond Park. Well, anywhere in Queens, but in her district in particular. And we did our first annual Suitcase Sunday. And we built a huge event. And the purpose of it is for at least one day for people to be able to earn more money than they normally earn. It also gave them new clients, but it also did something that's very important, which is it changed the narrative. You can't decide to change the narrative and think that, oh, I think I'll change the narrative. You have to put people in proximity to each other. So by putting people who never met a formerly incarcerated person in front of their table and then talking to each other, all of a sudden, we're not as dangerous as they expected us to be. We're not trying to steal their wallet, and we're quote, normal. People walked over to me and say, my God, why are all these people smiling? And I thought that was such a funny question. And I get it till today. How could you be smiling when your life I was ready to retire in 1997 when I was arrested. I was age 45. I was going to do philanthropy. And basically, all that I had worked for in my life was taken away from me. And you cannot rebuild that. You cannot rebuild the friendships, the networks that you lose when you go to prison. You lose everything. And so I understood in the moment how important it was to, I'm sorry, I skipped around there, to change, to get people to understand we smile in spite of what happened to us, and that we're happy to be free, and that we appreciate that freedom more than people can possibly understand. 1 week behind bars, and anybody would appreciate that freedom. So this coming, instead of producing the 5th annual Suitcase Sunday in Baisley Pond Park, we are probably joining Juneteenth celebration done in a different district because there's a lot more traffic, which we want to provide. So we did the map project, we did Suitcase Sunday, and the third area that we are working in, which is a huge area, is there are people who can walk out of prison and start a business. And then there are people who cannot, but aspire to. And those people are our next target, are our current target, people living in transitional housing. And I hate transitional housing because people stay in there. It's not transitional if you're living there for 20 years. Transitional is if you're living there for a week. As long as we keep building transitional housing, we are supporting the instability or the inability of people to get out of that system. I just want to also say that when I walked out of prison, I went to every service available that was primarily led by people who were not formally incarcerated. There are about 4 or 5 very large agencies that provide supposedly a lot of services for us. And I'll say this probably again and again. In 30 years of those services being offered to us, we have not reduced recidivism, we have not created long-term housing, and we have not created long-term employment income. So I'll hold it there because I'll get back to that later. So our third, I realize there are people who want to learn how to be in business, but need a lot more hand-holding. So we are starting on February 24th. We have the Queens Economic Development Corp approached us. Seth Bornstein approached me. He said, I have a 4-year grant from the Department of Justice to build formerly incarcerated entrepreneurs. He said, do you want to do this? I said, yes, I want to do it. So he hired Witness. He hired our staff. And our first program is a 2-year program to create tailors and fashion designers. And we will not just teach them how to sew and how to use commercial machines and how to use, individual machines. We will literally create a brand, put them on online sites to sell, and start to put them a year into the program. As soon as they can make some of their own designs, we will put them in pop-up in situations where they can sell their stuff, like Suitcase Sunday or other pop-up arrangements that we can make. So we think that a vocational training school is very much needed. Our first program, called the Art of Tailoring, targets system-impacted LGBTQ youth. We have 25 youth from Hedrick Martin Institute that live all over the city, and they'll be coming to the office, and they're all between the ages of 16 and 24. And we hope to get enough funding to do a 2nd and 3rd class, and we hope to grow it into more programs. But right now, there's very little manufacturing in New York, so our office is a little bit of a manufacturing hub, but it'll primarily be something that we will build. So I see us as focusing on economic independence with the goal of creating economic mobility and stability, which I think is the only way you can reintegrate. And I believe that if you have your own business, recidivism goes to 0. And if you can earn a living, you can be housed and food secure, period. You cannot be housed and food secure unless you're earning a living. So for me, providing the services that I used that gave me a meal, a MetroCard, a resume, and training on how to interview, and maybe 1 or 2 jobs to interview at, was useless to me. led me to a year and a half of being homeless. So the businesses that offer those things and offer one-stop solution for SNAP or Medicaid are earning money per head on our what I call transactional items. I have yet to see any of these service. If you combined all the transactional items that we are provided, you cannot earn a living. It takes a lot of time to help one person or one family. It just takes a lot of time. It's very easy to be a soup kitchen and give out 10,000 meals. It's not as easy to take one person and put them into business. So if we are able to have two classes where after a period of 2 years, we can say we have 50 people that we put into business, I will consider that not only transformational, which is what the goal should be, in my opinion, but it would be, we can prove that there has to be a different model. We can't just shove the entire underserved population, be it formerly incarcerated or immigrants or people in poverty. We cannot just put people in transitional living and see any growth. We have to actually help. We have to actually put some meat behind the bones. Now, the two other areas that I personally work in, but Witness works in it, but I cannot devote as much time as I'd like, but I think they're important issues, is eliminating sexual violence in confinement. It's a nightmare of an issue. The Prison Rape Elimination Act, which was passed in 2003 by Congress, the level of sexual violence in male and female prisons is off the charts. They're closing some of the federal women's prisons because one in California was called the Rape Club. And make no mistake, Rikers Island is another rape club. And it's not, it's women and men both. So I serve as the only, I may not serve any longer because it's a new administration, as the only formerly incarcerated person serving at the Department of Justice Listening Committee. And, you know, they'd come on and the government would tell us how much they've succeeded in reducing sexual violence. And I would say, exactly what prison were you at? Was it in the United States? Because you're crazy. And of course, they are, but I'll hold that. The second issue, which has been of concern to me for 20 years, and now is of even greater concern to me, is the intersection of climate change and mass incarceration. When Hurricane Sandy came to New York, Bloomberg ordered the evacuation of everybody from 14th Street down in Manhattan. He built 72 shelters up further up in New York, and even found a way for people to take their pets to the shelters. What he didn't do, and what he made public, was he did not move incarcerated people. How do you justify in your brain every governor saying evacuate or die, except we're going to leave 100,000 people? Because floods don't discriminate. So when the power is out, which it was out in Manhattan, when a skeleton staff is left, you have incarcerated people living in sewer water with no lights, no food, but most importantly, if you require medication, so just take an example, if you're insulin dependent, there is nobody to give you your insulin when the prison is on lockdown. It doesn't happen. So prison is a place you're supposed to be sent to lose your freedom, but prison is a place in reality where your life is at risk almost every day, whether it's physical violence, sexual violence, lockdowns, where you're not getting your medication. Prison is a nightmare. And so the best thing we can hope to do is give people an opportunity, a real opportunity, through transformative programs only, to rebuild their lives. So I'm one person and I require 90 interns because I'm not well funded like some big organizations. I work with 90 interns. I work 7 days a week so that other people do not have to go through what I went through. And even with my best efforts, I'm limited to the number of people I can help. And God knows what's going to happen to funding, in the next couple of months for all of us who are actually out there helping. So I think I talked too long.
No, you didn't, Evie. And I want to say, first, I'm going to start by just thanking you for sharing your personal story, your personal experience, and then, segueing into like what your organization is about and how you actually founded it. So what we want to do,
But feel free to ask me any question except for one.
okay, what's the one?
Never ask a formerly incarcerated person what their crime was.
Okay.
People look at me and say, how could you have been in prison? What did you do? And the reason that I tell people it's important not to ask is because I started life as a concert pianist. I worked on a PhD in child development. I worked in nonprofits. I've done in no-kill and raised money for no-kill animal shelters. I do not want to be defined in your mind as the crime I did. And if and my crime, people say, well, you must have done a low-level crime. I don't want them to make that assumption. I have to stand with my friends who did violent crimes or were accused of doing violent crimes, but really didn't. So that's the only question I highly recommend, because it's not that I'm ashamed of it. I wear it as a badge of honor. I'm not ashamed. It's just that for a lot of people, that's a difficult question.
Okay.
And I want to stand with those people.
Okay. Actually, what I was going to ask, and it's the burning question. I'm going to ask this first because I want to make sure that I know Nellie has to leave by 7, so I want to make sure that she's around for this question to be asked. And this is actually Roz's question. So maybe Roz, you want to ask it? I'll give you that honor.
Okay, well, bottom line is, how can we help? I mean, your story, it's moving, and we sort of assume things, but we really don't know. And I could imagine a number of things, but how
So-
can we help?
So believe it or not, one of our biggest problems is not me producing an event for 40 people, but it's getting the public to attend the event. So I can get 40 vendors to come on a Saturday over and over and over again. I can get elected officials to appear. I can have music, but I don't have traffic. And when we do, if it's very important to come out and get the community to come out and understand that if you really want to help a person, spend $10, spend $100, spend what you can afford on buying products from them. Or come on our website, look up the businesses and try to use the caterers. I'm happy to provide a list of, excuse me, we have caterers, we have bakers, we have fitness centers, we have any business that you can imagine we have. So the second thing would come out to our events. Believe me, it's a big problem. And the second thing is we could come up with a way to promote these businesses by giving you maybe a digital document that says who you can buy what from. Or just help, we can brainstorm on who we can help. Just remember that a lot of the people may live in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, but where they do event, they don't really live anywhere. So they live what we do is citywide, and but we primarily work in Queens. So supporting shopping through us, supporting coming to our events is a really big thing.
Well, I would think certainly contact information, or links that would help, that we can put in our newsletter. That's a simple thing, but
Or we can feature one person every month if you'd like. I can give you someone to feature who's doing great work, and that's something I would like to see other people do. But yes, I can arrange to have different links. We could coordinate.
thank you very much. I can actually, and think of a particular need that I might have in the near future.
Okay.
So we'll maybe be in touch.
And feel free to call me, especially at night or on the weekend, because if there's any way in which we can help the population, I want to do it.
Okay, do we have your contact information where we could call you?
Well, I'll give it to you.
Throw it in the
Chat.
chat. Yeah.
Assuming I typed correctly.
Yeah, that's all right. I know Amparo put your website information, and there's one more thing I wanted to actually put in the chat as well, if I could find it.
Now, I just want to show you that we tried to
Okay.
create a stream of income. Please go to, and the other thing you could do, mybooboo.org.
Okay.
For those of
Okay.
you who weren't on early,
Okay.
we make dog hoodies. We make these, but we make them in solid colors too. This is my dog, Boo Boo. That's her logo. And it says Social Justice Warrior. So this, we hope, will be a stream of income. Hang on. Boo Boo is on the staff. If you go to the
Okay.
About page, Boo Boo is on the
Okay.
staff.
Okay. Great.
Can I
And
jump in, Lauren, with a question, if that's okay?
sure. And I just wanted, before you guys, just wanted to let you know, I'm just putting in a link to an article that was in queens.com. That's how you came to my attention, Evie. But go ahead, Anelli.
I was going to say Evie, but Evie, I realized I would have been mispronouncing it. Evie, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story. You know, you told it also in such a captivating way. You're such a strong storyteller. So I commend you, and I bet that, you know, is an important part of your advocacy. So two quick thoughts for you. One is, I wonder if we could share your information with one of our partners, Sunnyside Community Services, because they convene events and perhaps they could refer to your vendor list for you know, some of those services. The other I'm thinking of is also Queens Borough President's Office. That's you know, that's in our network, and probably another place we can share your information.
What
And
I'd like you to do is get him to give us some funding.
Okay.
yes, money talks, but listen, another way is utilizing services with some paid contracts.
That would be great.
The other thought is, and I'm sure this is on your radar, and perhaps there's some limitations given the, you know, the history of these vendors, but have you already looked into having them sign up with MWBE for the city as a certified vendor?
So MWBE is for profit. Like, I'm a not-for-profit. I can't sign up.
But can the vendors that work with you, the entrepreneurs, can they sign up?
So I encourage them to sign up, but a lot of them are like me. They open nonprofits to do their catering business from. So some of the best businesses run as nonprofits, but I will take any suggestion and try it. If you want, the best thing you could do, because once this chat goes, I will never get, if you want to share anything with me, please send it to me email or text.
We could certainly send you a text of the chat if you are challenged in saving the chat.
I'm challenged in erasing chats.
I've been saving it.
Okay.
Thanks for that. And Andrea?
No, actually, Nellie, thank you for mentioning Sunnyside Community Services. And it's a great idea when you mention around having the vendors register with minority-owned businesses, because of some of the funding that we do receive as an organization, there are times when we're required to use minority owned businesses as vendors. So having a listing of folks that we could go to depending on what they do would be so helpful. So happy to connect with you offline as well.
Okay, sounds good. You're more than welcome to connect with me. And we can consider this a first conversation.
Okay.
And we can brainstorm on it another night, because, it's a large population and a large population in Queens.
Mhm.
Happy to answer more questions if you
Okay.
like.
Does anybody have anything else they'd like to ask?
Do you have any upcoming events? I mean, Saturdays or?
Um,
Anything?
on February 24th, we're starting this class, and we will make it open. We will invite people to come watch this, because I think it's an amazing experience to watch how much people really do want to get themselves lifted up out of poverty and do something they love. So I'm happy to invite people to come. The class is in Long Island City on 37th Street. So probably wouldn't be hard for people. You're welcome to come as a group, or it runs every Monday night, the first 6 months, and then every day during the apprenticeship. So the other thing is, if anybody knows how you get listed as an apprenticeship business with the state of New York, please let me know. Because we have pre-apprentice programs and apprenticeship programs. And I heard there's a way to get contracts through that, but I end up being too busy to remember. I end up needing some help there.
Okay. I'm thinking also maybe our small business committee might be able to help. We have that's another committee on the community board. I don't know if they would welcome a presentation, or somehow maybe be able to come up with ideas too that may be helpful for you. I don't know if they would have an answer to that question that you just asked, Evie.
Anything that would advance my ability to help my population, please. I'm happy to talk and meet in person or on Zoom.
Okay.
I think that's an ideal suggestion. I don't think there's much overlap between the Small Business Committee and this one. So, and would you put the event that's happening, or you said the 24th, or?
It's our first class.
Yeah,
and we're-
put the info in the chat. Okay, so.
And the other thing is, if any, I have the area that I would say we are weakest in is getting media coverage, like getting New York One to come anywhere, getting anybody. We do get local Queens newspapers to write about us, but I would love somebody to follow, and I would love to find a reporter, or on whether it's print or television, to follow one or two of these kids who for 2 years to tell their story about how they develop, or just to report on the program. So if you have any, I would be very grateful if you had any ins to any television program, because
Okay.
I think this model is unusual.
Okay.
Can I ask one
Andrea,
last question?
yeah.
Quick question, is all of your events on the calendar is there a calendar on your website with
No,
all the
all of our-
events?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I wish that, no, we are in the process of there's a lot of information on the website about our programs, but not probably a current calendar. We will, the next big event, meaning where we have 40 tables, will be Juneteenth. But I will be looking for other opportunities to take my vendors to whenever I can.
And I guess my other follow-up question is the link to the vendors and their website, can you go through yours?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you just
Okay.
go to the map
Okay.
project. So
Okay.
let me, you go to
No,
the,
I have it. I have
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Because-
But so you're able to connect the link to the vendors through your
Oh, yeah.
website. Okay.
all of their information is on there.
Okay.
We're also currently spending a little bit of money to make the map more efficient than it already is. I mean, we've taken, to be honest, I've been the only staff person for the last number of years. I now have 2 more staff people, and I've been operating with interns, and they were wonderful, but it's not the same as having a staff because of midterms and finals.
Yeah. It's different. So the Juneteenth event, where's that going to be? Where you have the vendors, the 40 vendors?
I'm sure that it's in Alicia Heinman's district.
Alicia?
It's not, I don't remember the number of her district. I'm sure it's in
Okay.
that district.
So then do you think so we can get information through her website or
Well,
her
I have
office
to
or?
first, I have to first work it out with them.
Oh, you're still working
Where-
out the details. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. Okay, but that's something that we could definitely also like advertise in the newsletter.
And we'll
If
be,
the timing is right.
District 29.
Hmm?
Assembly District 29.
29. Okay.
and we'll have we'll have our vendors have tables at Queen's Pride. We'll also have them have tables wherever the opportunity comes up.
Okay.
We were at the Bulova building not that long ago with a number of tables. We'd even come into a community center. If you wanted in Sunnyside, if you wanted to do an event around us, I would bring all of my people there as long as we can bring participants to the event. Because even if it's, and we were thinking we'd have one day, but we're not up to this yet. One day where we will offer to repair clothing for anybody at a 50% discount because we have
Okay.
students doing it. We'll try to model it after NYU Dental, where you have a student doing the repair and the teacher watching over it.
Uh-huh.
We're not, that'll happen.
Okay.
I can't tell you how many people have great fashion ideas. It's wonderful.
Mm.
I can't sew a button, but these kids are amazing.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of creativity out there. That's
Yeah.
all there is.
It looks like the Juneteenth event is in Roy Wilkins Park, 19th
Yes.
of June, 2025.
Okay.
So as they are very excited at the possibility of having us, but I want to make sure that that the 5th annual Suitcase Sunday is presented as a partner, as opposed to us having our own event. But Baisley Pond Park, we can't attract a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we produce the event and people make a little bit of money, it's not a big enough crowd. I have to, and I have no problem with moving the event or creating other events around the borough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm wondering at the farmers market that we get an awful lot of people coming in on Saturdays and the farmers market that we have in Sunnyside, for instance. And actually, before the primaries, there's an awful lot of attention by the electeds or the would-be electeds. And I don't think you have to do anything terribly formal to go there and table.
You mean at the farmer's market? They probably charge a fee. We would have to find out.
Yeah, I have no idea, but the our council member could advise you on that. They go, I mean, but I mean, it's a sidewalk.
Who's your council member?
Julie Wan.
Oh, okay, she's mine too.
Yeah, oh, good. Yeah.
Okay. We actually get support from Tiffany Caban's office. She actually
Okay.
supported all 3 of our pilot programs, but we hope to expand that to other city council people.
Tiffany's amazing. And because Rikers is in her district, because she's a former public defender. I mean,
She spoke at my event in New York.
good.
Alvin Bragg, she did. We had Chuck Schumer come to the event. Although we need to get some younger Democrats up in there.
Don't you go being ageist.
I'm entitled as a 73-year-old activist.
I'm more entitled. Beat you.
Okay. Can I ask you, Evie, since you mentioned that, do you have a history of activism? What other areas have you like advocated for? What other?
Oh my God. I mean, I'm an old women's movement. I mean,
Okay.
I was in school, I was marching in Washington every weekend in the late 60s and early 70s. I would come home and when I was in high school and college against the war. And that was, I am shocked that 1 million people are not in the street.
Mm-hmm.
I am shocked. In the last 17 days, if you can't get people on the street based on what we're seeing and what we know, because I'm very closely connected to a lot of people in DC, if you can't get them out and angry, I don't even know what to say.
Mhm.
But because I'm a child of two Holocaust survivors, I always feared my whole life that something could happen in the United States. I was never one of these people that said it could never happen here. And I feel like it's happening here now.
Mhm.
Not that much different.
Mhm.
Letitia?
Leticia, yes.
I'm so sorry. I tried listening in, but I got out of work very late. I missed most of your presentation, so I apologize, but I was skimming through your website and I'll read more in depth in it. But I was wondering if you've partnered with and I'm sorry if you said this already, but
Okay.
I was wondering if you partner with like John Jay's Institute for Justice and Opportunity and the Columbia Center for Justice.
So this is a very small world. We're all friends with each other. So we know each other. I not only know so I'm part of a network of roughly 1,000 women from all 50 states, and we meet once a year in person, and we meet monthly on Zoom. So there's almost no activist that I don't know and program I don't know. But what happens is I already work 7 days a week trying to build. My focus has always been on building economic liberation, economic independence. So I've got to really concentrate my energy where I'm going to achieve those goals. And people constantly say, please come with us to Albany every week. I can't do that. Number one, a 5-hour bus ride or a 3-hour bus ride I'm disabled from my back. I can't do it in one day. Number two, I can't walk around. That would knock me out for days. So I've staked a ground. I do sincerely believe that earning a living is the most important variable, especially now, for not only my population, but the immigration population, the every underserved population, that's the key. So I try to focus my energy on that. And I've noticed that some of my friends are starting to do courses around workforce development. And I yell at them, I say, if you teach financial literacy to someone who doesn't have $100 in the bank, I will kill you. Because they tried to teach me budgeting. When Witness had less than $500 in the bank, one of my funders gave me an expert in budgeting. And I thought, why aren't you giving me an expert in fundraising? So the expert in budgeting and I sat down, and she said, you need to know how to budget. I said, with less than $500, I have to pay rent. That's the end. But what I'm trying to say is I have staked out an area that I can transforming people's lives and putting them into business. Just to understand the numbers, and then I have to go to my next meeting. It costs me about $6,250 a year to train somebody in year one. So in a 2-year program, we're talking about for $12,500, which doesn't include a stipend, I can give somebody a career and I can put them into business. If I need to pay them a stipend, we have to add another $1,000 a month. Rikers costs $567,000 a year. Going to college for a year costs $40,000 to $100,000. My solution of putting people into business is a whole lot cheaper than any other solution. Because college you go to for 4 years. So do you spend that kind of money just to not get a job or maybe get a job? For our people, you have to get a job, so it's not an option. But it doesn't cost a lot to do what I'm talking about. And like I said, reducing recidivism would be 100%, not 95, 100, if we were able to put somebody in business. And that's the key. Keep people out of prison.
I was just asking because I mean, I don't know, but I like education. I believe in education, and they offer programs to people who are at risk or have been incarcerated. Um, Most of their programming is free, and when students graduate from their initiative, they they provide workforce development, and so I don't know. I was just thinking perhaps that could be like some kind of partnership between the organization and them, and but that's how I was thinking about it.
So I know Center of Justice, and I go to their March event every year, Beyond the Bars, and I speak at that event. It's not that, what I'm saying is that um, there are so many people I could partner with. I have to be focused on the partnerships. And I'm not against education. Some people ought to go in and get education. I am working with a population that needs to earn a living. Mo Mostly. And I send if they want to go to school to get a degree, I knew Kathy Boudin. I know Missy Wilkins. I know the people at the Center for Justice very well. I don't know John Jay as well. And so we work side by side, and they'll call me for what makes sense for me, and I'll call them for what makes sense. But those are wonderful suggestions, but I have to stay in my lane.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? Oh, Dr. Roz.
Yeah, I'm just sort of curious about the Fortune Society. Where do they fit in your, you were describing organizations that give out Metro cards and things like that. Are they one of them, or what do
You
you
sure
think?
you want to ask me that question?
I do.
That was my answer in a way. So, I don't think a $30 million organization who's been around for 30 years and has not reduced, or 20 million, whatever they have, who's not reduced recidivism to a greater degree, doesn't have a model that works. If you have 70% recidivism rates for 30 years in New York City, something's wrong with the picture. Change the model.
Thank you. Is the recidivism rate the same for women as men?
I don't have an answer for that. I don't know. I haven't seen it broken down. Let's put it that way.
Thank you so much.
And, they probably hate that I say this, but I'm not for any of the big organizations because I feel I went through them. And I was still homeless and penniless for a year and a half after going through these organizations. So, and there was no way to back into anything. There's a stream of services. Once you go through them, you're done. So, I think it's great you feed people. I think it's great you give them a Metro card, but this is not, if you really want to change things, that's not the way to go. It didn't help me, and I had a tremendous resume.
And Robert, did you have a question?
Yeah, again, this was really a beautiful night. So thank you for being here, and your joy and really brightened my day. So I'm thankful.
Thank you.
I'm just curious about your house of worship partners. I can think of so many people, like definitely in our district or in the city, that would just be so moved by who you
Oh,
are.
I would love to give a talk to all the faith-based groups in one location. That would be, if you could facilitate that. But the suitcase project, I approached my synagogue and I said, raise $2,000 for me so that I can give someone a suitcase. And we lowered the price after a while, but it was I do believe that social justice as done by interfaith communities or faith-based communities is a wonderful place to go. But our big event, indoor event, is held at B'nai Jeshurun, which is an enormous synagogue in Manhattan, and it's gorgeous. And we still can't, for the amount of energy I spent getting people from my synagogue out and other synagogues out, people don't show up. I had to personally write 100 letters to get people to come and make phone calls. People don't come to these events. And these events are crucial to our economic health and well-being. So I would love to meet absolutely in Queens and maybe together we can have an event or a couple of events that would be hosted by different parties. And if they can bring a captive audience to the events, then we create history.
I'll
I-
follow up with your email. Thanks for sharing it.
I think that's one of the best routes to go. So I'm about to meet with the person who is rebuilding my map
Okay, good.
and creating an app of the map so that we can give it to people free inside prison. So before they leave, they can correspond whether they're in Nebraska or New York with places and get a head start on having somebody at home that they know they can go to that are safe.
And that is so important, Effie. That is so important.
Well, I let a lot of sleepless
Mhm.
people sleep in my apartment the first couple of years, but then I had too many.
Okay.
I only had 2 rooms, little rooms. I get a lot of joy out of doing this work, and what I've come to realize is I spent an entire career building up my unintentionally building up my wealth. I just, was in business and doing my life. Nothing has been as satisfactory or as giving to me as a human being as it is to help other people. Nothing. There's nothing like this. And that's why I have a lot of joy. And I didn't know it would be as joyful as this is.
Okay. Thank you, Effie.
My pleasure. We'll talk soon.
Okay, we will.
Thank you
Okay.
so
Take
much.
care. Oh, you woke up.
Okay, and bye, Boo Boo.
Bye, Boo Boo. Bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye.
Bye bye, Boo Boo.
Nice to see you all.
Same here.
I'm telling you, she's a parrot in another life.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye, Effie. Okay. Yeah.
Wow, that was so powerful.
It was, wasn't it?
Wow.
Yeah.
She's dynamite. She's so creative and, smart.
Yeah. Yeah. So the only thing left is old business, new business. I don't know if anybody had anything they want to bring up. I haven't forgotten about people's ideas about what they wanted. Leticia, I haven't forgotten about the subway surfing. Amparo had suggested we're gonna have something that's immigration related, so we're gonna work on that. And then I don't know if anybody has ideas. I was gonna reach out to the community board office, this Northwell
Yeah,
school.
the high school.
The high school. I
Yeah.
also
We've been trying to
sent
get them on the calendar for forever, and they're opening in the fall.
Yeah, and I reached out to some email address I found online and there was no response. So I don't know if anybody has any ideas about how to get in contact so we can just at least get information about the programs in that school. But I'll work on that. I'll reach out to the community board office too, to see if they have any connections. Because it looks like they have the principal all lined up and everything, so I don't know. I just would be good for them to,
Is there
what
any,
district?
It's our
what's it-
district,
It's our
Leticia.
district, it's Woodside.
It's right here on Northern Boulevard.
is
the
there
new one.
anybody in the building at this point? I mean, if there were, sometimes you just go walk over there.
It's not really
Yeah.
open. It's still very much a construction site.
Yeah.
And that in addition to at that Northern Boulevard stop of the M and the R, they have the elevator work happening there too. So there's just like a lot of just kind of messy area.
Yeah.
I was gonna suggest maybe reaching out to the Community Education Council 30,
Okay.
their office, and maybe
Okay.
the people there, they might connect you.
Okay. No, I appreciate that because it's it's something that we wanted, and it was like I think at the time when it first came out, it was just a press release, and then they were like looking for a principal. Now they have one, and then the applications were for students that was the deadline was in December. So it's just like hoping things are moving along, at least it seems, but it'd be great to just hear about their programming and give people a heads up when they're ready, I guess, for their next class to apply.
I
So,
dropped the link in the chat.
okay.
Thanks.
But
And
so-
they should hear about the all-powerful Health and Human Services Committee.
Oh, is that what it is?
I couldn't resist, but
Okay.
I did have a discussion with some
Mhm.
people who then didn't follow up, but potentially is encouraging them to come and sit in on our meeting. These are people in the community who are concerned about dogs and particularly dog owners who, and I don't know whether it's just one or two bad apples. Apparently a number of people have gotten bitten. And the police, I did go to the 108th Precinct Council, or whatever it was, and they were, I'd have to say, lame in, giving all the reasons why they couldn't really do anything. I mean, it seems to me that they should have some tools in their toolbox more than this. But nonetheless, they want to come to the board, and I said, come and sit in and get more involved and
Mhm.
so on. I mean, it is a health issue. It's
Mhm.
but it doesn't hold a candle, honestly, to like what we heard tonight.
Okay. Okay, no, that's good though, Roz, that you're inviting people to come in and then discuss their issues with us and stuff like that. So I think that all of that is important. And thank you, Leticia, for the information you dropped in the chat. Okay. Does anybody have anything else they wanted to discuss?
Yeah.
Sure.
So I felt like it's my responsibility as as a parent or a parent of the school. So my kid goes to IS 429 on Barnett Avenue, and also my kind of relationship here with the community board and this committee. But I just wanted to address it because I'm sure someone's gonna bring it up at some point. So at my kid's school, the school has been receiving donations of tickets to, like, I think this week is like the Met. A couple of months ago, it was to some other excursion. I can't remember. And then they did some sort of other excursion in the fall. And so the parents are kind of concerned because, are not kind of, but they're very concerned because the way that the students are being selected was essentially they're all being put into like some sort of lottery system, and they pick this time it was 75 names they had to pick out from this system. And the school goes right now is 6th and 7th grade, and so they picked 75 students that are 6th and 7th graders, and the names don't change. So everyone that got picked the last time are put back into the lottery, and that is a decision that the students made. So the school gave the students 3 options on, how do they want to go about these being selected for these trips. And so the first option was if your name gets picked, you don't get put back into the lottery, and you call it a day. The second one was you get picked once, and and then we're gonna put you back in the lottery. But you might get picked again, or you might not get picked, the second time, right? So
Mhm.
the chances that a student gets picked.
Mhm.
And then the third thing was they just say no to the offer of these tickets or whatever it is the experience is, and and just call it a day. And
So
so
your name's not put in at all, even,
yeah,
so name not put in at all. Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
like no, they just don't even take the tickets.
Oh, you don't take it? Okay. Okay.
So like So like they say no to the partnership or
Okay,
the tickets or whatever. They're like, no, thank you, right?
okay,
And
okay.
so the kids, they give the ballot to the students. The students voted number 2, that, the names get put back into the lottery. The parents are frustrated because they're saying that the kids are hurt and they're hurting, and that they're because they're not being picked, and this, that, and the other. And so for me personally, I'm not impacted. I've had the conversation with my kid. I'm like, are you, do you feel some type of way because you're not getting picked from these trips? Because he hasn't been picked to any trip of these additional trips, right? He goes to the trips for the school, that the school offers to all the students, but for these bonus trips, that we're calling them bonus trips,
Mm-hmm.
he hasn't been picked. So personally, I talk to him all the time, and I think we have a relationship where if he's concerned, he's gonna
Mhm.
tell me.
Mhm.
But parents, so right now we have a WhatsApp chat where parents have been airing their grievances about these trips, and so a couple of parents are saying that there's several children that are not happy and are crying and are just upset because they are not being selected for the trips. Um, and so I personally have worked at a school. I know how hard it is to get free tickets to like the American Museum of Natural History and to the Met. Sometimes they only give you 50 tickets, 75 tickets. Sometimes you have to beg so that they can give you more tickets, right? But the parents don't understand that, like they went to see some sort of Broadway show that they got a donation for these tickets. And the parents don't understand that, donation's a donation. The school rather not turn away the donation than, and then just do the lottery for the students, right? But the parents are like, it's not fair. Some kids have gone twice. My kid is sad. Like, why are we ignoring, dismissing the kid's pain? So that's the tea that's happening at the school. There's currently a what's this thing called? A petition so that the principal can stop with these unfair practices of selecting the students. And I can share the link to the petition so that you guys can read it. But I told them and they're like, the SLT is not listening to the school leadership team's not listening to their grievances. The PTA is not listening to their grievances. The principal's ignoring them. And so I suggested, because I believe in community organizing. And I told them, if you really want to make some noise, go to the CEC meetings. They have a public portion of the meeting, and air your grievances there. Just tell them what's happening, from your perspective. And I also told them, go to community board meetings so that other people can also know about what's happening, and they can maybe give you some insight on how to approach it. And yeah, but it's getting so bad because of these trips. And so I'm sure at some point a parent is gonna, reach out and say, this is what's happening. But like I said, I know I worked in schools. I know how hard it is to get these donations. I've been telling the parents to practice SEL with their kids, practice how to self-advocate if the students are not happy that this lottery system is in place, then, organize students, and feel empowered to be like, all right, well, we're going to start a petition and we're going to present to the principal and say, we don't like this. But the parents are mocking me, and I'm like, you know what? Do whatever you want, because I'm done. But they're closing this WhatsApp group because
Okay,
it's
okay.
really bad. Sorry, I'm just venting now, but
No, that's all right. You're giving them their advice as to what to do. That's all
yeah.
right. I hear you.
Anyway,
I hear you, Leticia.
but there you go. Just letting you know.
Okay. All right. How have they responded in terms of going to like you said, in terms of the the CEC meetings and then coming to the community board?
It
What have
just
they said
went
to that?
today to the CEC meeting, because today it was actually during the same time as this committee meeting. So
Okay.
I missed it, but
Okay.
it's okay. And then The community board, they said they weren't prepared to present it last week. So I
Okay,
said, okay.
okay,
The principal's gonna have a special town hall in March to
okay.
address
To
it.
address this issue, to address this
Yeah.
issue? Okay,
So we'll see. I'll keep you
okay.
posted.
All right. I mean, yeah.
Can I get clarification? This is all based on a decision where somebody made a decision to have students vote on this policy? And
So, so the SLT, right? The SLT first decided whether or not they take this donation of tickets, right?
Okay.
The SLT said, sure, a couple of students will get this experience. I think it was like a Broadway show. I can't remember now.
Okay.
And the SLT was like, sure, we can extend this opportunity because we don't know. What if a kid never goes to another Broadway show
And
ever again?
yeah, it's a good opportunity. You're exposing
Right.
the students to other experiences. That part, yeah, makes sense.
But the parents were upset. It's like, why couldn't you advocate for all the kids to get Broadway tickets? And so why don't you just turn down the tickets? And so then the principal was like, okay, let's ask the kids how they would want us to do this. And so then they give the vote to the students. The students voted that, it's, that sure, because I guess in the eyes of a student, right? And these are middle school students. So in the eyes of a student, if my name gets taken out and the next trip is a Six Flags trip, I'm gonna miss out because I already went on the Broadway trip, you know? And so the kids are like, no, we're gonna keep our names in the lottery. And if we get picked again, we get picked again. If we don't get picked, then we don't get picked. But the parents are upset because they have kids that have never been picked for a trip.
would they be satisfied if they, if it was, once you've been picked, you get at the end of the line and,
Y-
I mean, that's.
That's their ideal situation, but the kids did not vote for that. And so the parents are like, well, the kids didn't know what they were voting for. But it's like we should trust the students' judgment, and rely that they know what they're voting for. Like I'm sure their teachers walk through them all the options, right? You trust that as educators they're doing their job. But yeah, I'm gonna share the thing right now.
Okay. But then you're saying it's possible some of these parents may come to a community board meeting, maybe speak
Oh,
at
they
at
will.
the, okay. But the
I
town
know.
hall specifically in March is specifically about this issue, or is it about other issues?
It's an SLT meeting
Okay,
that is going to convert into a town hall.
okay.
And I'm gonna drop the petition right now. Feel free to sign it. It's been circulating all weekend. They just shared it this morning with the school community, but by the time they shared it, it already had garnered 200 signatures,
Okay.
which is like how, but it's none of my business. I'm like,
Okay.
good luck with your petition.
Okay.
I would think it's really up to the principal, isn't it? I mean.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
take some-
I
take
don't know
some
that we have say
leadership,
over this.
I used to believe heavily in democracy before last November.
I know, right? It sort of changes your perspective on things, some of these things. But no. Thank you for the heads up, Leticia. We'll see how this goes. But yeah, thank you. And thank you for the link. Does anybody else have anything else that they'd like to discuss? No. Okay. This is 7:37. Okay. We're no
Motion
longer
to
meeting.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second. We got it. Take care, everybody, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.